Hey everyone. So let's get real. Let's talk about it. You're in a situation where you're being abused and or your spouse is using a substance and or you have children and you're afraid, you're scared, you don't know what to do. Let me get into that because I am a victim of domestic abuse. I did successfully get 2 orders of protection. I did get full custody of my children during the order of protection, and then while I filed the divorce, I did legally move states with the children. And I will also go over what I did wrong and what I wish I would have done better to protect the children and myself. So stay tuned. Have a pen and paper ready, and maybe I just need to type out some resources. But anyway, at least I will post this and you will have this information. As I mentioned, Nate relapsed in 2020. Hannah was 4 months old. Daniel was almost 2. During that relapse, his first tip, during that relapse, he spiraled out of control very quickly. He came home. I don't know how long he had been drinking. He was passed out on the couch. I could not wake him up. He left. He did not come home for a very long time, meaning that day. And then when he did come home, he slept and then was up on and off at night, still drinking. What I'm getting into is that at that time, I wanted to leave the house. It's almost as if he had 2 personalities, multiple personalities. He would be happy one moment and loving life, and then the next moment he was hiding and not saying anything and sneaking downstairs and being deceptive, and that's where he was drinking. And then another moment he's listening to music I've never even listened to myself, that is demonic music. And another moment he is angry and lashing out and trying to grab Daniel out of my hands. So that whole thing transpired within 48 hours. Because I was trying to leave with the children for our safety. I had Hannah in a carrier and on me, so he could not get Hannah, but he did get Daniel out of my hands. And of course I didn't want to hurt Daniel, so I didn't hold on to him. I called, the police came to the house, and I tried to leave. I tried to have a conversation with Nate. He wouldn't let me leave. He was very angry. He was verbally abusive. In the meantime, I thought the police could get him to calm down. I started packing up the car because I was leaving him, and he would not let me leave with Daniel. This is what I wish I would have known and done. So when you call the police, and if you have a spouse that is using, and you are outside with the spouse that is using, legally, depending on your state, but in Iowa, legally, they could have arrested him for public intoxication. The police officer pulled me away and let me know that if we were outside, they would take him in for public intox, and I would be able to leave with the children. But because we were inside the house, I could not leave with the children unless Nate let me leave with Daniel. I had Hannah already on me, remember. So I ended up, they basically gave me a choice. they would call CPS, which I did not want to happen. I would have to stay at the house, and they didn't say sneak out, but basically stay at the house until I could grab the kids. Or I could leave with Hannah and come back for Daniel. I was not leaving Daniel. So, I don't know why this color is so incredibly off. There we go. Anyway, sorry, that was very odd. Anyway, I did not leave with Daniel. I slept in the house while he would continue to drink and be verbally abusive, and I slept with one eye open. I don't even think I slept that night, to be honest with you. As soon as he fell asleep and the children were awake, I got out of there, and I did not turn back at all. And that's when he spiraled out of control, and he went from hotel to hotel and kept locking himself in different hotels. So that was that first time. That's what I did wrong, is I should have waited until we were outside, or asked him, or basically somehow have gotten him outside. I'm sure there would have been a very easy way to get him outside. Find his alcohol, walk out with it. Prime example. Second thing. Second relapse. I thought Nate is not on the lease. We had moved at this time. I moved to a different place with the children, because at the time Nate was still using. So after he got out of rehab, intensive rehab, he did come with us. First problem, I should have let him live on his own for a while in a halfway house. My boundary was not big enough. And I will say, during this time, during the first relapse, I did file what I did right during the first relapse. I forgot to mention this. I did file for divorce immediately. In Iowa, my assets are protected if I filed for divorce. It's the only reason why I filed. I did not have the intention of getting a divorce, but the intention was to stop the bleeding, because he was spending so much money on hotels. We did have separate bank accounts, so he was using his business funds to fund his habit. So, second relapse. Now, I did tell him after the first relapse, if you relapse again, I'm filing for divorce. I am not dropping the divorce. I'm getting a divorce. Second relapse. Obviously, actually, let me hold off on that little tidbit right there. Second relapse, we were all living in a townhouse. Nate's name was not on the lease. I did that on purpose. Actually, we already were there. I did not add his name to the lease on purpose, because I thought if he relapses, it's very easy. He's going to have to leave, and I won't have an issue. Okay. Sorry, I dropped everybody there. Anyway, second relapse. I thought, since my name was on the lease, there was no way that I was going to leave once he relapsed again. Interesting. I thought he would relapse again. Actually, I don't know what I thought. I just was preparing for it. Let's put it that way. I haven't had a very good history with people stopping to use drugs, etc. But I'll explain that later. Anyway, so what I did do is, his name was not on the lease. He lived with us. Obviously, we're still married. He relapsed, came home, and I was extremely sick, very sick. I did not know, I didn't have the energy to talk to him about his relapse in all reality. So I just went ahead and he was like happy, he was happy-go-lucky, and I just thought, you know what, let it be. I will say this, so my throat hurt, my head hurt. I couldn't tell you if I had COVID or not. I don't think I tested myself, can't remember. Anyway, I was pretty sick though. I actually ended up missing work, I was so sick. So that night I was pumping milk for Hannah and Daniel, and Nate was watching some movie and found it hilarious. That wasn't very funny. Anyway, doesn't really matter. I was pumping milk for Daniel and Hannah, and he asked me, are you on your monthly cycle? And I said, yes. Why? He's never asked me that before. And he didn't respond. And then I got up to unhook my bottles, and then I walked back to where I was sitting, and there was a towel on the recliner. And I said, why is the towel there? And he said, because you have your monthly cycle. And then he tried to take my pants off. I said no. He kept trying to take my pants off. I said no as I'm backing up. He kept trying. I was backing up so far. I was in the kitchen. We were in the living room. I backed up so far. I was in the kitchen, and I started looking around for my phone because I was going to call 911. Because by this point time, he had gotten my pants undone. There was a tie at the front, so he had gotten the tie undone. And then he realized, I don't actually know why he stopped, but it's for some reason, he said, okay. And then he stopped. And they laid down and passed out. Now, I will tell you, that moment, I should have called 911, big mistake. Should have called 911 right then and there. No means no. Whether it's your husband, it doesn't matter who it is, no means no. Even though he didn't directly do anything, I said no multiple times. I was backing up multiple times. I backed up from the living room to the kitchen to look for my phone because my husband wouldn't stop taking my pants off. That is not okay. Should have called 911 and reported it. That would have been an automatic order of protection right there. Now, I did not report it. Thought it was me. Thought I was okay. I'm going to try not to cry, because that was seriously, if my daughter would tell me this, I would think, what are you doing? The next day, I went to the office. Nate had left the house. I should say this, after he fell asleep, I took his key off of his keychain so that when I left the house, and if I came home, actually, take all this back. I did take the key off the keychain after he passed out. He ended up getting up and leaving the house before we did. So what I did is I locked the house when we left. Sent him a text. The house is locked. I have your key. If you need anything, please let me know, but you are not allowed back in the house. Came home. He broke into the house, took all of the door handles off of the house, put new door handles very badly on the house so I could not get in. And then I called the police. I I noticed that there was an issue with the door, and so it was hard for me. I couldn't really get in, and part of it was open. Like I said, he put it on really badly, and part of it was open, but I couldn't get all the way in. Called the police, let them know somebody broke in. I'm pretty sure it was my husband, etc. They could not get in. They finally got in. They had to take the door handles off. They finally got in, and then we did notice that he was in the house. He had opened up the daily devotional and basically had a note on there. I can't remember what it said for me. And then the police said, by the way, my car drives itself, so it makes lots of noises. I'm not just randomly driving by myself and talking to you. Anyway, then I explained to the police that I want to press charges, break and entry. My name's on the lease. Nope. In Iowa, if somebody stays at your house for more than, I believe it was 48 hours, they are legally entitled to get into that house. Big problem. Big problem. Which is why we should have been separated for a long time. Like, we should have been separated after rehab, period, right? We should not have moved back in together. It was way too soon. Nate needed to work on his recovery. He should have been in a halfway house. However, he did live with us. Big mistake. And then, because of that, he was able to legally break into the house. I said, so he can take a rock to my window and break the window, and that's legal. And they said yes. In Iowa, that's legal. Then I explained to them what happened the night before. And their response was, you need to get an order of protection. Now, granted, what I should have said, this is where I was wrong, what I should have said was, I want to press charges. They didn't ask me, but I guarantee you, if I would have said, because if they're already telling me to get an order of protection because he tried to take my pants off when I said no, that means it's enough to actually charge somebody. And sometimes, in all reality, there are times where you just have to be your own advocate with the police, to be honest. Look at my other videos. Actually, I'll link one of them at the end, which is he was violating the order of protection and I was doing all the police work and they would not arrest him. And he was harassing us. There were four warrants out for his arrest. Bottom line is that you need to be your own advocate. If you don't know what the laws are, look them up. Look them up. And ask, keep asking, keep pushing. Don't let it drop. That's what I should have done, and I did not do it. And I should have done it. So, anyway, I did go, and I will say this, what was really good is that they gave me the advice to file the order of protection. And that was extremely beneficial. Through that order of protection, so in Iowa, Scott County, all I had to do was go to the courthouse. They have victim advocates that will help you to file the order of protection. You can get an attorney. Actually, and I'll tell you, there's something else I have to tell you with that. I'll tell you right after this. You can get an attorney to help you, but I'll tell you why I didn't for this one. So anyway, you go to the courthouse, you fill out all the paperwork, and I will tell you this, another thing, document. You need, if there were witnesses, get witnesses. If you think something happened, it was on video, go check out my other video where he hit me with the car. I went and got that video from my neighbor's camera system. Without that video, he would not have been found guilty of domestic abuse. get evidence. Note the time, note the date, and this was actually recommendation from the police as well. Have a notepad, write anything and everything down, because it will be extremely beneficial in the future. So take that information, go into the courthouse, or at least, like I said, this is Scott County, Iowa. Go into the courthouse. A victim's advocate will help you fill it out if needed. It is quite a process, meaning it takes a couple of hours. You fill it out, you submit it, and then they will actually ask a judge right then and there to grant a temporary order of protection. Once that is granted, then you leave with that order of protection. And in that order of protection, you can ask for custody of the children. And if you would like any visitation rights, meaning any form of contact. For this one, the first one that I did, I did not want any contact. You take that, and then you take that document and you keep it with you everywhere. It is gold. It is your protection against anything and everything, because they have to go and file, actually it has to get filed and served to the other party. So with that being said, anytime there was a violation of the order of protection, I had to have my order of protection with me. Anytime for daycares, for schools, anything, church, they want a copy of that order of protection so that when the police are called, they have physical proof that I have custody of the children. Even if you don't have custody, have that physical proof with you at all times. I will tell you, I carried one in my purse, one in my car, and one in the diaper bag, and then I had multiples at home in case I needed any extras. So you can never have too many, and I definitely had to pull mine out. So that being said, I did get the temporary order of protection. Now here is the issue. The issue is that it's not valid until the other party is served. So then the sheriff's office will actually serve the other party. The problem is that somebody like Nate did not have an actual place where he lived or worked, because he worked for himself and he didn't have a place to live. He was not living with us. So I had to do my private investigator work, and I had to get in the back end of his phone and actually find out where he was and what hotel he was at, etc. So it was a lot of work. Now, because he violated me, had I pressed charges, the first night called the police and pressed charges, and the second, when I called the police the next day, had I insisted on pressing charges, we would be talking a completely different story. There is a criminal order of protection, and then there is a civil order of protection. Civil order of protection is when you go and you actually get granted the order of protection. Criminal is when there is domestic abuse or some type of other abuse that I cannot say on here. Then a criminal order of protection is issued, and that lasts for 5 years. The civil order of protection lasts for 1 year, and you have to get it updated every year. So criminal has a higher standard than the civil. Had I initially filed charges against him, I would have gotten a civil order of protection. And in all reality, doesn't matter. I shouldn't do it for the civil order of protection. I should have done it because it was wrong and it was against the law. He's not allowed to do that. Anyway, now let me get to the reason why I did not have my attorney file the order of protection. As I mentioned, you can have your attorney file the order of protection. What my attorney explained I told her what was happening, and she said, what I want you to do is I want you to go file the order of protection yourself. She gave me all the steps to do it. Once that is filed and he is served, then I will file for divorce. Reason being, if you in Iowa, if she would have filed the order of protection and then filed the divorce, some people will file for an order of protection and a divorce in order to win in a divorce case. Not saying it happens, I don't know the outcome, but judges don't look favorably on that. And so she said, in order to really work, I shouldn't say work the system, but in order to make it like keep them separate, you file it and then add me on later after I file the divorce. So that was her recommendation. She also recommended filing the divorce after you file the order of protection, if possible. That's what I did. Very good advice. And she is a very good attorney. If anybody is in Iowa, the Quad Cities area, she's a fantastic, she knows the law in and out and knows the judges and other attorneys, etc. So now, then after this relapse, again, we were living in two separate places. He did go to inpatient for 30 days. And when he came out, we still had the order of protection. I kept the order of protection as is. The only thing is that because he was sober and quote unquote sober, and he had been sober for so long, or for a couple of months, I don't remember how long it was. My attorney mentioned, so now this is where we get to the divorce part, right? So we have the temporary order of protection. Then we also have the divorce as well filed. The temporary order of protection within 7 days will be finalized. 7 days of the other person getting served, it should get finalized. After he was served, within the first 7 days, because he would not stop talking when we were talking about the order of protection, the judge extended the temporary order of protection and asked that we reconvene and it was with a different judge. Now, my attorney was okay with that because the judge that was there that she knew said he favored men. And so she said, this is better for us, actually. We did then start going through another round of talking about the order of protection with the judge. And it was delayed, I believe, a couple of times as well. So that temporary just kept getting pushed back. In the meantime, we're also starting to talk about the discovery phase of the divorce. With that being said, any order of protection through the divorce process, the divorce will supersede the order of protection. So even if I get custody of the children in the order of protection, now because I had temporary custody at the time, if I got permanent custody for 1 year in the order of protection of the children, if the divorce grants him part custody, then that will trump the actual order of protection. Key to note. And that will go in, you will hear how important that is when we go further in how I got into the third relapse, because that's the key to how I moved out of state with the children legally while filing for divorce and the order of protection. But I have to tell you the key that my attorney did to get that, the key advice my attorney gave me to accomplish this. And I might have to do it in part 3 because I'm almost getting my children and I don't have them hear this stuff. Anyway, but it ended up, let me just finalize this part at least. So with this second part, it ended up to where he did start doing good, meaning he was sober, he was going to meetings, he was doing all the things right. And so my attorney was concerned that he might start getting custody. He did start getting supervised custody. And so he and I started going to counseling with our pastor, who was also a counselor, started going to counseling to talk about co-parenting. And then through that, I realized I did a lot of prayer, and I decided to give him another chance. Was it the right thing to do? In all reality, anything to keep the children safe was the right thing to do, because he ended up relapsing again and they would not have been safe in his care. So I would say yes, it was. Tune in for more. I have to get the kids. Whoops.